What? Time to go. Hi. Thank you for being here. I don't think there's accidents. It's like, this is your life. I really love doing these talks, and I feel that there are no accidents. So if you're here, you're going to hear something today that might be a nugget, and it might just be one sentence. I feel that way about books too sometimes. The whole book doesn't have to resonate for you. Just a page might be something that you highlight, that you put by your bedside, and you go back to again. So if one thing that I say today resonates, then that was worth the trip, and you got a cool cupcake out of the deal too. So, Jim, so glad to know that you're willing to be the president of the Midwest Fan Club. Have none, so any volunteering. So excited that you're here. Awesome phone. Go ahead, turn it on. Answer it. Can I answer it?
You know what?
Can I scare them?
I don't have that song before.
It's a ghost. Who called their dead dad? It's London?
Yeah.
Dang, you're important. Everybody's on I did a one-woman show, and in this very important part of the show, my father's dying, and somebody's phone goes off, and it was, I'm getting sexy back. Yeah! It was Justin Timberlake's Sexy Back. It was really appropriate. So, it was good. It's all good. It's all good. Again, that was a little wink from somebody. I have been interviewing people who claim that they talk to dead people for as long as I can remember. I've been fascinated by the topic. Ever since I was a little kid, I wondered what happened when we died. I was 5 years old, and I always wondered what was going on, and were there leotards in heaven, and all those really important questions. And so my grandmother, Virginia, sort of taught me about God, and she was very religious, and it was a part of her, who she was, but she didn't beat it into you that way. It was just very much, a faith was just sort of how she was structured, and it glowed from her. And so when I was around her, it made me feel very calm, and she was a singer, and it was my dad's mother. And when she passed away, I was really miffed, because then I thought, well, where is she? But I could still feel her. It was really strange. I knew that she was gone, but I could still feel her. And so when I got my first job in the media, I worked for, first I was a traffic reporter. If I had to say outbound Kennedy to O'Hare one more time, I was going to shoot somebody. But I started as a traffic reporter, and then I moved on to an entertainment reporter for WGN television, and then from there to CBS television. And at the time, my father, Tim Weigel, was working there as a sportscaster, and I was there as a reporter and an anchor fill-in. And he was my dad, not my husband. A lot of people ask me if I was married to Tim Weigel. I'm like, yikes. And then I also get now, are you married to Rafer Weigel, who's my brother, who's on ABC Sports? I'm like, no, that's my brother. My older brother, too, by the way. I was like, your younger brother. I'm like, he's older. But Rafer and I grew up a year apart. We grew up here in Evanston, just a few blocks away from here. And so my first encounter with somebody who claims that they can talk to dead people was meeting James Van Praagh. James Van Praagh was coming through Chicago, and this is after he wrote a book called Talking to Heaven, which was his first book, and I highly recommend it. It gave me a lot of it was kind of like Talking to Dead People 101. It just covered a lot of the bases, and what he says is that when you pass away, there is no death, as Diane said. There's no death. It's just you're walking into another room, and there's new furniture. It's like, wow. And then you see your life story, and you feel every emotion that you ever put out. I'll say that again. You feel every emotion that you ever put out. So, is there a heaven or a hell? According to James Van Praagh, there isn't. There's just a reflection of how you lived your life on the other side. So you sit and you watch your movie. So if you were a real jerk, your movie's kind of gonna stink. But if you were a loving human being, then your afterlife experience will be a loving experience and full of bliss and joy. And you have a chance to elevate, he says, by learning. This is all our classroom, he says. We are up there and we choose our curriculum. It's like when you're going to college and you pick your classes. Apparently we choose all these classes. He says we choose our parents. Yeah, I'll say that again. We choose our parents for all the lessons that they give us and everything else. And he says that we watch this life review, and we can contact our loved ones on the other side by talking to them. They're right there. He says they might not be able to answer every single call at every single moment because apparently they're elevating their consciousness or something. So So if they can't answer every call, they'll send somebody. And this is interesting. I just interviewed James again. Now this is, I think, the 4th time I've interviewed James Van Praagh in my broadcasting and journalism career. And he was coming through town. He's got a new book out with Doreen Virtue about grief and healing your grief. It's very good. And Doreen Virtue is the angel lady. Love her. So and Doreen believes that we all have like an angel posse just sort of hanging out, waiting to be summoned for duty, right? And some of us might have 3, some of us might have 5. Hey, I like to picture my angel posse kind of like the Commodores, all of them in white suits, just like waiting for an assignment, you know. And so there they are. And if you're in traffic or if you're going to, you know, someone's house for Thanksgiving and you need a little support, call on them. Apparently they can't come down and intervene, says James, unless they are called. Now, James also was raised very religious. He wanted to be a priest for a while. He was raised very Catholic. And now he says that when you get over there, and he says that he wished he had been a little bit more clear about this early in his career, that really there is no religion. It's all one. It's all God. It's all love, okay? So there's nobody there going, I'm sorry, we don't take Lutherans. There's none of that, okay? And there's nobody there looking at your resume going, oh, I'm sorry, I know what you did in 3rd grade. You can't come in. That's not happening. There's nobody there with a clipboard. There's nobody there saying that you can't enter because you weren't baptized. This is love. When you get there, it's all love. It's all-encompassing, it's overwhelming, and it's pure. And he says that since the age of 8, he's been able to feel this, know this, and see relatives of his on the other side, communicating clear as day what happens. So I don't know if you've seen that show, The Ghost Whisperer, based on James's life. So Jennifer Love Hewitt was cast as James Van Praagh because she's, you know, cuter. And so James was the executive producer and consultant on that show. And a lot of the episodes of that show sort of reflect what his beliefs are about what happens. So I meet James, and he came to my condo in the West Loop for this interview. It was kind of interesting, because at the time, nobody wanted to touch this guy with a 10-foot pole. But it was like, yeah, he talks to dead people. Next. ABC didn't want him, NBC didn't want him, WGN didn't want him. I was with CBS. The only reason that my editor, or producer rather, agreed to the interview was because he had a bestseller book. He had a New York Times bestseller. Talking to Heaven was a New York Times bestseller. So that meant he was valid. So on his schedule that day was myself and Man Cow, and that's it. Nobody else would interview him. So he came to my house, and we sat at these chairs, and he says, and then this was 1999, so this was before anybody could Google me, even though he knew my first name and last name, and if he wanted to do a whole bunch of research, he could have. But Virginia is my granny, my grandmother I was talking about, with this, the big heart and the faith. And we called her Ginny, G-I-N-N-Y. And when James sat there with me, he said, I have Jimmy? Jenny? I'm like, I'm Jenny. Wow, you're brilliant. No, Ginny. He says, Ginny is here. She's glad that you have the rings. And I had her rings that I wore. Now, everybody's got a dead grandma with some jewelry in their pockets, so I was skeptical, always a journalist. We need our sources to be able to call them on the phone. They need to be on a piece of paper. They can't be some guy sitting across from me saying, Ginny is here. This was like really strange for me. So then the other thing that tipped the scale in the, wow, this is weird category was my mother-in-law at the time. She was very Catholic, and I told her about my interview with James Van Praagh, and she says, have fun in hell, because you're going to get a suite there, because you're talking to a guy who says he talks to dead people. So, as we're sitting there talking, my father-in-law had passed away. His name was Richard, and as soon as my husband walked in the door, James says, Richard is here, and my husband's like, huh? And he really thought I had lost my mind and was on the train to Crazy Town, you know, just for interviewing James in my home. So when James starts talking about Richard and the very specific things that Richard did before he passed away with his life insurance, that he changed things in life insurance, again, not stuff you can research, not stuff that was talked about, not stuff that I even knew about or that my husband knew about. Nobody knew about this. So I took the VHS tape, that's how long ago this was, to my mother-in-law after the encounter and gave it to her. And then she made a few more jokes about my suite in hell. And then the next time I went to visit her, she had every one of James Van Praagh's books on her nightstand. So James sort of it gave me an awakening a little bit, but again, still I was skeptical journalist. So then my father passes away, he gets a brain tumor, and he dies at the age of 56. And we went on this sort of quest to try to heal him. We went to the Deepak Chopra Center and got him all organic foods and did everything that we could that we thought that would reverse the cancer, and Wayne Dyer and everything, spiritual, embraced it. And he still died, and I was really mad at God, and I was mad at all the gurus that we'd interviewed, and Don Miguel Ruiz, who wrote the Four Agreements, was in town the week that my father passed away, and I was scheduled to interview him at Transitions. May it rest in peace. Wonderful store that was downtown, Transitions. And so I was interviewing Don Miguel Ruiz, and he's a doctor, right, medical doctor, who kept healing people, and then they would come back with the same illness. And he said, gee, something's wrong here. I keep fixing them, but they keep coming back broken. Maybe something's wrong with their mind. Maybe their mind is making them sick. Maybe there's something to this. And he was raised a Toltec, his mom and grandmother, Toltec wisdom. It's an ancient Indian wisdom. And the Four Agreements that he goes by, be impeccable with your word, okay? So you're never, the vibration of your word has to be truth at all times, even if it might be hard for someone else to hear, okay? Truth, being impeccable with your word, not out of malice, just being truthful to who you are. Don't take anything personally. Don't take anything personally. Somebody doesn't invite you to that Christmas party, it's not about you. If you're not plotting their demise, chances are it's not about you. I mean, if you're not sitting around trying to find ways to complicate someone's life, if you don't hear from them or if they don't react the way that you hope that they would react, don't take it personally. Something's going on with them. They might be going through a divorce. They might have an illness in their family. They might have a sick kid. They might just be annoyed with the world and they can't cope. It's not about you, so don't take it personally. Don't assume, again, never make assumptions because we never know what's going on with somebody else in their world. And the fourth agreement, always do your best. Whether you're changing a diaper or you're on the phone, when we multitask 60 different ways, we are not giving our full focus. Always do your best. So I'm sitting there with Don Miguel Ruiz, and he's talking about the Four Agreements, and I said to him, so my dad did all the right stuff and he still died and I'm pissed. Sorry, kids. And he said, well, you know what, we all are the executive producer, the writer, and the director of our movie. Our life is our movie. And we cast it, okay? So your father was the writer and the executive producer of the movie. You were just a cast member in his movie, okay? So it was his choice when he left. You had nothing to do with that. You can't make him better. He could only make himself better. And I'm like, but he was making himself better. He did all the right stuff. And, you know, again, he said, you don't know what his contract was. You have no idea what his contract was with the studio, which is God. So I think about that. He said, even with our children, they are the ones writing their movie as much as we want to write their movie. Do we want to write their movie? We want to rewrite their movie. But they are the ones that are writing their movie. All we can do is influence them through our being. We cannot change somebody by forcing them to be something. We can be incredible beings, be impeccable with our word, and then they want to change because they're like, I'll have what she's having. That's what it's about. It's not imposition, it's inspiration. Change comes from inspiration, not from imposition. How annoyed are we when somebody comes knocking on our house? You want to find Jesus? You're like, ah! It has to come from inspiration. So Don Miguel Ruiz really helped me through that, but I was still kind of confused on all of these things. So I have to tell you, the person that changed my perspective on absolutely everything. There's a few other people, but recently here at IONS, Dr. Mary Neal was a speaker. Did anyone here see her, Heaven and Back? Okay, how amazing. So Diane calls me and says, Dr. Mary Neal is in town, and I now write a column for the Chicago Tribune. It's called Lessons for Life. It's every Tuesday on chicagotribune.com. Darn you. And so I get to write sort of psychology-based stories, and I like it very much. But if I talk about mediums and psychics and things that I'm passionate about, my spirituality, a lot of times at work, people just kind of go, la, 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 I'm not listening. So even though Dr. Mary Neal's book was a New York Times bestseller, it didn't matter how many ways I pitched it from Sunday. Nobody at the Tribune wanted to touch it with a 10-foot pole. So I said to Diane, well, can I interview her for my next book? Because I was writing my third book. So Stay Tuned is my first book, which is out there, and it's a collector's edition, by the way, the hard copy, because it's now in paperback. So if anybody wants me to sign one, if you have one, please find me. And then I'm Spiritual Damn It is my second book that I wrote, because after my first book came out, I'm Spiritual Damn It sort of started writing itself. Everybody started sharing their stories with me. Unbelievable stories, like a fireman who gets whispers in his ear, turn left, turn right, saving his life every time he's on the job. Wow. I truly believe that we are all so intuitive that we don't give it the time of day. We are born highly intuitive, and as we grow, we shut it down. I was talking with David about our sons. My son has been able to talk with my father since he was 2. How you doing, bud? Although he doesn't remember a lot of it, I was keeping copious notes when it happened. He's never met my dad. My dad died before Britt came around. But when he was 2, I had the baby monitor on, and he was probably too old for the baby monitor, but you just want to make sure that they're still breathing. And so I heard him laughing, and I was downstairs, and I'm like, what the heck is so funny? It's 8:30, he should be sleeping. So I go up there, and he's cracking up, and he's pointing to the ceiling. I'm like, who are you talking to, bud? And he's like, the guy. I'm like, okay. Good night. And I said, what's the guy doing? He said, give me twuck, fire twuck. He's so nice. So the next day, we're down in the basement, and he goes running around, he's playing with his dad, and he sees a picture of my dad. And he stops and he goes, Mom, that's the guy. He gave me the fire truck. Points to my dad. I'm like, even dead grandparents can shower their grandkids with gifts? How cool is that, right? I love that. So he'll bring up Grandpa, and then this was a shocker, and I was just telling the story. On Christmas, 2 Christmases ago, we were with family friends, and I had these earrings of my grandmother, Virginia, and she had the screw earrings, because they were like, she didn't have pierced ears. So I got them made into real earrings, and I wore them on Christmas. And Britt says to me, I was thinking about her, and I was thinking about Dad and how much you miss them as you do over the holidays. But then I'm trying to think of what James Van Praagh says. They're just in the next room. They're so close. Talk to them. So I'm talking to them in my head. And then Britt says to me, Mom, Great-Grandma Virginia likes what you did with the earrings. I was like, yes, nice. She heard me. So all these little things, I do believe we are born intuitive. I believe it shuts down after the skeptics and the doubt and the fear and the energy that blocks our chakras can shut it down. I think intuition is like going to the gym. You can build up that muscle. But some of us have gifts and some of us don't. Some of us, like with the piano, can only play chopsticks. But some of us can play Bach like nobody's business. But every single one of us can take a finger and strike a key. Okay? So your intuition is on a scale. For some, it's off the charts, and for others, it's not. But every day you could choose to try to broaden it and make it bigger and trust yourself. You know when you're feeling something that's from your heart versus your ego. Because if you're making a choice out of fear, that's your ego. Any choice you ever make out of fear is your ego. Any choice you make out of pure love is just that love. And when you choose out of fear, you're on top for a minute, but then you sink. It's like standing in quicksand. Because eventually, the universe catches up with you. So I want to get back to Dr. Mary Neal. I go to meet with Dr. Mary Neal. She comes down to the Tribune. And this woman has, as you know who saw her, the most incredible blue eyes I have ever seen. This was April 13th, 2012. I remember it because it was the day before Britt's birthday, and that's why I couldn't come to Ian's, because we had a birthday party involving Star Wars figures, and I couldn't miss it. So I got to meet with Mary, and she came to the Tribune, and we started having our dialogue, and this orthopedic surgeon, underwater for 30 minutes in a kayaking accident. She says, I'm a woman of science. There is no way I should be breathing and speaking to you right now. I know what happens when the body is without oxygen for 2 minutes, let alone 30. She was floating above, and she saw her bloated body and her broken leg and everything happening, and she's in the light. She loved her husband and her 4 kids, and she didn't want to go anywhere. This light was amazing and all-encompassing. And then she's told, you've got to go back. She got kicked out of heaven, as she says. I know, see, I have abandonment issues. If I were kicked out of heaven, I don't think there are enough therapists in the world that could have helped me with that. But she said, okay, she's supposed to go back and tell her stories. So she also was told that she had to go back because her son was going to die young, and she had to help with that. So she had this knowledge for years that her son was going to die young. Wow. And I couldn't even imagine. Every day, she said, I said, how did you deal with every day with knowing that knowledge? And she said, I would make every day matter. The little stuff, you don't sweat the small stuff. Talk about not sweating the small stuff. I have a saying called princess problems. There's real problems, like Dr. Mary Neal not breathing for 30 minutes. And then there's princess problems. My Pinot Grigio is not cold. Really? Princess problems. I'm in traffic. You're breathing. Stop. So Dr. Mary Neal tells me this story, and I said, okay, so how do you explain bad things that happen to good people? Because I'm in the news business, and I see a lot of bad things. Every single day there's a fire and a tragedy and a hit and run and some god-awful accident. And she said, well, I don't think there are any bad things. I was like, excuse me? I don't think there are any bad things, it just is, she said. There's good, there's bad. She goes, think of the worst thing, she said, think of Jesus, for example. He was betrayed and tortured and killed, and here we are, 2,000 plus years later, talking about him with love. Every tragedy is a reason to find love, to go deeper and to learn. She goes, my son, I had to bury my son, but I know where he is. I was there. I know there's no death. I know it's all love. I was there. And I said, okay, so you got that memo. So for the rest of us that are here, any advice? She said, every single day I wake up and I say, in God we trust. Like on the penny, she thinks of the penny. In God we trust. And I trust that I am going to be guided to where I'm needed. She said, this morning I got up and had a phone call. I had to go to the Chicago Tribune for an interview. She goes, I don't like interviews. I don't do interviews. But I did because I was called to come and tell the story. And maybe you will tell others my story who hadn't heard it before, and maybe that will help. Because way back, I'm a big fan of Jesus. I'm not a fan of some of his fans. I always say I wish the people who like Jesus would act a little more Jesus-y and not so judgmental. I have some born-again Christians that I know that, they're really mean Monday through Saturday, but then they go to church on Sunday and make it all better, and I'm sorry, you have to be the same way Monday through Sunday, Sunday through Sunday, 24/7. That's God and that's love. It's not judgment. It's not about judgment. It's not about you can't come here because you don't have mine. I can't go there. It's all love. It's all encompassing. So for Mary Neal, she said, look, it's all connected. We are all part of the same tapestry. It's like a gorgeous oriental rug. When you're bird's eye looking down, you see the beautiful pattern. And everyone is connected, right? There's that end to that end. But even those people you think are your enemies that you don't want anything to do with, part of the tapestry, people. We're all connected. But when we're in it, we're like, ow, this sucks. I'm getting stepped on and it's frayed and I'm snagged, Sure, because we don't have the bird's eye view. So she tries to remember the bird's eye view, that we're all connected, that we are all one, that we are all energy. And also, vibrations, like attracts like, okay? This is science, okay? My uncle is an atheist. He doesn't believe in any of this woo-woo stuff that I talk about, except that he says it can all be proven by science. If you have two samples in petri dishes of cells, and they're pulsating at different vibrations, they're going at different rhythms. After time, they will start syncing up because they're next to each other. It's the energy, right? It's like your roommate in college, you get the same period cycle. It's science. You're around each other, so your energy is bleeding between the two of you. That is what happens. So what all of these people, the through line I can tell you from the people that I've interviewed all these years, is that what they see down here is vibration, okay? They don't know right or wrong. They just see hate or love, fear or love. So even when you're protesting for peace, that's still anger. You're still putting out anger. You might think it's justified, but it's rage. You're still spewing out rage. And what Deepak Chopra told me is you can still fight for justice and spread love. With that loving vibration, think of Gandhi, Martin Luther King. You can protest for peace, peacefully, lovingly, not eye for an eye. That's not going to get you. Water is the only thing that puts out a fire. And love is the only thing that is water. So when you think about that, looking at somebody's vibration, have you ever gone into somebody's house, like maybe you're looking for a house and you can totally tell they just had a wicked fight?
Yeah.
It's like you feel it. There's sludge in the air. It's like, ooh, wow. Glad we weren't here 10 minutes ago. That's because the vibration of their fear and their anger and their rage, a lower vibration is in the space, and we walk into it and we feel it. That's science. So my Uncle Ron, the atheist, will say, well, when people think so much about something and it shows up, it's because we're putting out the vibration and the vibration shows up. It's matching that vibration. So think about that as you go through your day, as you're driving. What's your inner monologue? It's okay to have thoughts of, I wish I could hit him with my car right now, but don't dwell on it. Don't sit there and meditate that. Let it go, honor it, know you had a moment, and call in a higher vibration. We have a choice for our thoughts. We think we choose our thoughts. We think our thoughts choose us, but we choose our thoughts. So, Dr. Mary Neal's perspective on the tapestry and that bad things don't happen and that there is no death and that she's going around talking about this miracle that happened to her because she was without oxygen for 30 minutes truly changed my life. Because every day I wake up and I say, show me the next steps for my highest good and the highest good of all involved, no matter what it looks like. That's it. We think we know what's best for us, but sometimes they know what's best for us. If you've been applying for a job for 17 months and it hasn't happened, maybe that's not what you need right now. I just interviewed a woman yesterday, fabulous love story. She applied to this engineering college that she wanted to go to. She was so devastated when she didn't get the job. She pouted, she cried, she drove all the way to California, met the love of her life in 2 months. It wasn't meant to be at that school. She was supposed to have that upset. She was supposed to grieve, and she was supposed to get the hell out of Dodge and meet that guy in California. Sometimes our greatest grief, the greatest amount of grief, can be our biggest gift. So I interviewed Anita Morjani. So we were talking about Anita Morjani. I'm so sad that I have to wear readers now. You didn't see me just put those on. It happened when I hit 40. So this is from my third book. This Isn't the Life I Ordered. And Anita Morjani and I got to meet her because of Wayne Dyer. So Wayne Dyer said, you have to know this woman. She had 24 tumors the size of lemons, basically given no chance, in a coma for 30 hours. Cancer was riddled her body, 85 pounds. And she's in this coma and she's hovering over and she's looking down and she can hear the nurses and the doctor's thoughts. Just think about that for a second. Like one nurse is like, this lady's totally gonna die and I have a date. Can I get it out of here? I mean, you think your inner monologue is just your inner monologue, but apparently not. So Anita knew which nurses and doctors knew if she was gonna make it or wondered if she was gonna make it. And she saw her father on the other side and they had always had this conflict over some things, and there was of course no conflict because nobody was keeping score and it was all love and acceptance. And what she learned was amazing. So I want to just read this little chunk from my third book, This Isn't the Life I Ordered, which is digital only now because apparently my publisher thinks people only read books on their computers and their iPads and their Nooks. So if we complain enough, hard copies will show up. So Anita Morjani, the woman Wayne Dyer told me about, who has 24 cancerous tumors the size of lemons, she fell into a coma and was not expected to live. She came back to life and is now fully healed. Her healing remains a mystery to the medical community, and her book, Dying to Be Me, was a New York Times bestseller. I've been fascinated by her story ever since Wayne Dyer brought her to my attention. So I asked her, some people don't get to come back and have this aha, as you have. Do you have moments where you wonder, why me? I asked. Yes, I have a lot of moments when I've wondered, why me? I also feel that the ones who didn't come back are very blessed, because it was so amazing on the other side, it really was. I feel that the ones who got to stay there are not the unfortunate ones. Then I said, I interviewed Dr. Mary Neal, who also died and wrote a book about it, Heaven and Back. And I asked her, why do bad things happen to good people? And she said she doesn't believe there are bad things. What is, it just is. Do you agree with that? She said, I absolutely agree with that. I tell people that everything that happens to us is a gift. Even my tragedy, my cancer was a gift. And in hindsight, when we look back, we can see that everything that was an obstacle is a gift. And when people say to me that cancer nearly killed me, I say, no, that cancer saved my life. I was already killing myself with all of my fears before I had cancer. I do truly feel in the end, everything is a gift, and if it doesn't feel like a gift at the time, it means we haven't reached the end yet. How long ago was the coma, I asked. She says it's coming up on 7 years. Is your memory just as strong as when it happened to you, I asked. It is just as strong. The reason why is because when I was in that state, it felt like that state was the awake state. And this is the dream state. People have asked me, how can you be sure that wasn't a dream? And I say, I'm positive, because when we have a dream over time and it fades, this hasn't faded. I like to use the analogy that if you imagine you were blind, that you were born blind, you've never been able to see colors in your life. You don't know what colors are, what perspective is, what distance really means. Then imagine one day you suddenly have sight. And maybe you have it for just 24 hours or 48 hours. And suddenly you have this incredible clarity and you see colors and distance. I was in that coma for 30 hours, and then if that sight is gone again and taken away, even though it's gone, if you go back to being blind, you cannot undo the knowledge that you now have
from seeing the colors and the perspective. That never leaves you. That's kind of how it feels. I said, I've recently interviewed 2 people with different perspectives on abundance. I'm torn between thinking that we can have everything we desire, and then thinking, well, God has a plan. Maybe his plan for some suffering to happen will help so I can appreciate what comes later. How do you feel about manifesting? And she said, I have a very different way of manifesting. I don't go through the vision board, or the power of intention, or anything, because here's what I believe. It is human nature to have desires. You have dreams, that's fine. It's part of being human, and you can't suppress them. The more you suppress them, the more you are not allowing yourself to be who you are. But in order to attract what is truly yours, you have to love yourself and allow yourself to be who you truly are. The more you love yourself, the more you allow those things that you desire to find you. The more you don't like yourself, or you criticize, or you judge yourself, or you beat yourself up, the more you will suppress yourself, make yourself small, and you will be pushing away your dreams and desires and everything that is truly yours. You must love yourself unconditionally, and your external world will reflect what you feel inside. So it goes back to my Uncle Ron and the vibration that matches inside. Now, loving yourself isn't ego, like you're going to stand in the mirror and do your hair and be like, dude, I rock. That's not loving yourself. I'm talking about putting on your oxygen mask when the plane's going down before you help your small child. That is what it is. Last night I was doing a book talk and I said, I have to try to treat people the way I'd like to be treated. That's my religion. It's the golden rule. That's how I roll. And he said, this person in the audience, he goes, actually, I'd like to flip that a little bit. I think you should say, I don't want to treat others the way I'd like to be treated. You should treat yourself the way you think others should be treated. Because then it will work, right? Treat yourself the way... We are so quick to feed the children of third world countries, and we treat our cars better than we treat ourselves. Okay, we put in super unleaded gas, we got a ding in our car, we're freaking out. We take it in every 3 months to be serviced. Do we go to the doctor every 3 months? Do we ever get a massage or a chiropractic appointment when we need it most? Yes, good, yay. We have to. We have to, every once in a while, or otherwise you are bitter, party of one, your table's ready. You're limping around and you're a terrible spouse, a terrible coworker, or a crappy parent. And we think, oh, I'm doing this for them, don't they understand? Then we're resentful, and then we're angry. And then that cycle just continues of rage and anger. And then that vibration that we have, that they can see from up here, is dark and low. Try to raise that vibration, right? I'm sure you all heard of the water experiments, Emoto's water experiments. If you haven't, it was in the movie What the Bleep Do We Know, where they talk about putting symbols in front of water. So he put the Japanese symbol for love and the Japanese symbol for peace, and then for war, and then nothing on different water samples. And then he used a microscope to look at the water samples. And the love and the peace were like these gorgeous, gorgeous snowflakes. Incredible. The war was like jagged and awful. And the one that had nothing, that was completely abandoned of any sort of energy whatsoever, was like brown and gross. It started to have an odor. This is all from the same samples of water. The vibration of the symbol of love made crystallized, beautiful snowflakes in the water. What? I'm a journalist, I'm going, what? So that kind of stuff, when you can take quantum physics and all of these things and bring it together, is when you start to scratch your head. So at the Tribune, I got an email from an editor who said he would prefer to be nameless, so I won't say who, on an article at the University of Virginia about the proof of past lives. And this article, there's a new book coming out called Return to Life. They're compiling a book and a documentary about this topic. There are these kids between the ages of 2 and 6. They've been compiling research since 1961 on these kids that have these very vivid memories. This one boy who was somewhere in California, oh no, wait a second, here it is, Ryan Hammonds. He was 4 years old, and he began directing imaginary movies, shouting action in his house, echoing from his room. But the play became a concern for Ryan's parents when he began waking up in the middle of the night screaming and clutching his chest, saying he's dreaming that his heart was exploding, and that he was in Hollywood. So his mother, Cindy, asked his doctor about the episode's night terrors, the doctor said. Okay, fine. She started doing research on all of this stuff. He said, Mama, I think I used to be someone else. He said he remembered a big white house and a swimming pool, and it was in Hollywood, many miles from his Oklahoma home. He said he had 3 sons, but he couldn't remember their names, and he started crying, asking his mother over and over, why can't I remember their names? I really don't know what to do, Cindy said. I was more in shock than anything. He was so insistent about it. And after that night, he kept talking about it, and kept getting upset about not being able to remember those names, and I started researching the internet about reincarnation. I even got some books from the library on Hollywood, thinking their pictures might help him. I didn't tell anyone for months. One day, Ryan and Cindy paged through one of the Hollywood books. Ryan stopped at a black and white still photo taken from a 1930s movie, Night After Night. 2 men in the center of the picture were confronting one another. 4 other men surrounded them. Cindy didn't recognize any of the faces, but Ryan pointed to one of the men in the middle. Hey mama, he said, that's George. We did a picture together. His finger then shot over to a man on the right wearing an overcoat and a scowl. That guy's me. Mommy, I found me. Wow. Ryan's claims, while rare, are not unique among the more than 2,500 case files sitting inside the offices of Jim B. Tucker, an associate psychiatry professor at the University of Virginia Medical Center's Division of Perceptual Studies. Stories can be traced back to an actual person, rarely famous and often entirely unknown to the family, who died years before. In a number of these cases, like Ryan's, Tucker says the most logical scientific explanation for a claim is as simple as it is astounding. Somehow the child recalls memories from another life. So this child, they found the picture of him. They found out who he was. The guy had died, but they found his daughter. Amazing. So he went out, met the daughter, confirmed all of these things, and now they're making a documentary about it. And Return to Life is the book. But this is at the University of Virginia. How on earth do you explain that? We use 6% of our brain. That's science, that's a fact. And that's like Einstein, right? So the rest of us is probably like 4, 3.5 on a good day. So what is the other 94% doing? My thoughts are a lot. I don't tell anyone what to believe, but I ask a lot of questions and I interview a lot of people and I tell people what I find out and then they can make their decisions for themselves. I have since had many conversations with James Van Praagh. I met a woman in Lincoln Park, Therese Rowley, who spoke here. Did anyone see Therese? She has a book called Mapping a New Reality. I went into Therese's office and just gave my first name so that she couldn't Google me, because again, I'm a reporter and I'm a skeptic and I didn't want her, getting a whole bag of information. And my father had been gone about 8 months, and I walk in there and I sit across from her and she says, okay, there's a man here standing, he's like drawing X's and O's like on a chalkboard. Like, was he a coach? He says he was, no, sports. This is your father. Sports is a big deal. My father was a sportscaster, so I'm like, she's got my attention. She then went on to repeat a conversation I had that morning with my bosses. That morning, I had a conversation with my bosses begging them to take me off of the 3 a.m. shift because I hated getting up at 3 a.m. and I'd been there a couple of years and felt that maybe I could, work the noon shift. And they said no. So then I went and met with this Therese Rowley. And I told her that my question was, she always asks for a question or a challenge. And my question was, I think I'm ready for a career change. But I didn't tell her that I was afraid to leave my job at CBS because I didn't want to disappoint my dead dad. I have a theory we all want to impress our parents, whether they're dead or alive. We just want to make sure that we're making them proud somehow, and I didn't want to upset the guy. So I said to Therese, I'm thinking of making a career change. That's all I said. So my dad and I had this nickname for our bosses. We called them Laurel and Hardy because one was tall and skinny and the other was short and wide and they never got anything done. So I had a meeting that morning with Laurel and Therese said, he showed me a picture of Laurel and Hardy. Does this make any sense to you? He's pointing to Laurel. Did you meet with Laurel today? He was there. Okay, so at that point my brain just goes, like those Comcast commercials? What just happened? So, again, taking all of those facts, what is the other 94% of the brain doing? And that's when Therese told me. I interviewed her then for an hour and a half. I couldn't get out of that chair. I was like, talk to me, lady. And she said since the age of 6, she's been able to see things that you can't see or explain. She would sit in Mass with her mom every day. They were Catholic, one of 11 children. She went to Mass every day. And she would see things flying in the church, and she could see the energy behind certain priests, whether they were good or bad, and the darkness or the light.
she had a filter that I so want to get my hands on, right? And she said that she would talk to her mom about it, and her mom was like, let's not talk about that. Let's not bring that up at Thanksgiving, honey, shall we? So then she's in her 20s and she met a Catholic priest who actually told her that her gift was one of the best he'd ever seen and that she needed to nurture it to help heal people. And then suddenly it was okay. And so now she's working to heal people with their persistent life challenges. And she says that we have these challenges. If you have an issue that keeps coming up over and over and over again, if it's about appreciation or gratitude or, employment or family or whatever the dynamic seems to be, that is because God wants you to heal that challenge. And it keeps showing up because God believes you can conquer it rather than run away from it. I'll give you an example. I have a friend who has a boss. Wherever she goes, the boss is always wrong, she's always right, so she quits and goes to another. Quits and goes to another. Quits and goes to another. 7 jobs later and 7 bosses later, it's like the same cast member shows up in a different outfit. It's like a different window dressing for your window. Until finally, she stood up to her boss and said, this is the value I bring to the table. This is who I am. I love myself, not ego-wise. I love myself. I have value. I'm bringing it to the table. And when you mirror that out, it comes back to you. When you have that inside, it comes back to you. She's been at the same job for 2.5 years. Knock wood, it sticks. But this is her challenge. She decided not to bail. She faced the music and defended herself. That was one of her soul's challenges. So I went all over the country to try to find people with these gifts to interview them for my books. And I find one of the most talented ones right here in Lincoln Park with Therese Rowley. And I am forever grateful to Therese because she looks like a lady in an Ann Taylor suit. She's a CEO consultant. She went to Kellogg Business School. She's not the kind of person one would picture talking to dead people. I had this perception that they should, have patchouli everywhere and dead chickens. That's not the case. That was early in my career of questing. Now I feel like I'm so seasoned. We're all gifted. It's everywhere. It's in this audience. It's somebody sitting next to you who could tell you something that you need to hear. We are angels everywhere. They're planted everywhere. You are where you're supposed to be in every moment. That's what Dr. Mary Neal said. She said, how do you know when you're stuck in traffic that you're not being prevented from the accident 2 miles up the road? Right? No matter where you are, you're supposed to be there, as inconvenient as it feels at the moment. Daniel Brinkley coming in July, mark your calendars because he's fantastic. And if you haven't seen Daniel Brinkley, you must. So I first learned about Daniel from here. And Saved by the Light is one of the best near-death experience books out there. Do we have Saved by the Light here?
Yes.
Okay. Get it. Is that what you want? Nathan won it. See? You've got some good guides working for you, buddy. I'm telling you. So the thing about Daniel is that he was struck by lightning while on the phone and flown from his body. His shoes were soldered to the ground. They found them melted to the floor. He was hovering over the scene, watching as they're trying to resuscitate him. He's watching the whole thing like a movie, like, wow, I look really bad. And just like James said, you see the movie and you feel every emotion you put out, and Daniel kind of realized he was not the nicest guy. He was a bully in grade school. He bullied everybody just for sport. So he got to not only feel how he affected those kids, he felt how he affected their families. The ripple effect of everything he did. Then he was in the military and he was ordered to kill. He felt that and how it affected their families. I mean, off the charts what he experienced. And it's very lengthy and very detailed, but one of the best things that I took away from Daniel's message is when you're in the light, our prayers are heard, okay? Every single prayer that you put out there is heard. And if it's a true vibration of love, it shows up like on a ribbon coming into the clouds. I think that's such a cool visual. Like, oh, here comes another ribbon. Whoa, it's Jody from Omaha, and then it comes up and then they read it. And so all the prayers make their way up there, as silly as it may sound. I mean, I think of all the prayers I made, and please let Doug ask me to prom. In 1986, I would sit at the Episcopal Church, St. Matthew's, and pray about getting asked to prom. That one didn't happen. I'm guessing the vibration wasn't high enough to make it up to the clouds. But if it's for our highest good, it will happen. If it's for our highest good. And the other thing Daniel does is he hugs everybody. Like in line at the Jewel.
He's like, hi, how are you? But he knows, he saw the movie. He was so hateful, he doesn't want to give he wants this movie to be all love and bliss when he goes back the next time. So he will hug everybody, and it's just amazing to think that it had such an impact on him. And he has had many, many books that he sold. And then Paul Perry, who saw Paul here? Paul Perry is a journalist, he wrote a lot of books, and he actually co-wrote a book on Danion's life. Gosh, does he have 7, 8 books? He's incredible.
More than that.
Amazing. I think he wrote just 9 on near-death experiences. Maybe he's in the double digits by now. But
He's had 5 New York Times bestsellers.
yes, he's a New York Times bestseller several times over. And he stood up here and he said, I've done all these books on near-death experiences and I'm still a skeptic. And that's what I liked, because he's still a journalist at heart. We're still kind of going. And he said, though, the one thing that he can't blow off is the kids. All the kids that he interviewed who had had near-death experiences had the same recollection of the light and what happens. And there's no way these kids could have gotten their hands on some NDE books, right, and compared notes. That's the thing. The adults, you could say, oh, they went to the library, they did a bunch of research, and they're just repeating what they researched. But the kids, these 4-year-olds and 7-year-olds are going and they're telling their story, and it's that feeling of the light, that everything is love, and that love is all that matters, and that there is no judgment, it's just all love. And then, you see your family, and you feel so completely welcomed. When Mary Neal gets asked by doctors, and now she travels around to hospitals just to tell her story to doctors. Because as an orthopedic surgeon, she knows it sounds like crazy, but she wants to tell the doctors that she's a living miracle and that this is possible. And when they try to say, oh, but it's a lack of oxygen, yeah, maybe you could say that after 1 minute 30, 2 minutes, 4 minutes, but 3-0? 3-0. There is no, oh, my brain was without oxygen, I saw a light, it was happening because of the lack of oxygen in my brain. That's not what happens after 30. Some of these other ones you might be able to say that's what happens, but not this. I want to leave you with, because I want to do some Q&A. I know a little bit we're going to do that, but I want to talk to you about this director that I interviewed named Tom Shadyac. Has anyone heard of him?
Yes.
So Tom Shadyac has the long crazy hair, and he did Liar Liar and Nutty Professor and all these movies with Jim Carrey and Steve Carell and Eddie Murphy. And so he has a movie called I Am. If you haven't seen it, I highly recommend it. It's very good. But what happened for Tom is that he had this gigantic mansion and a plane and 5 Mercedes and a lot of art. And he's like, wow, guess what? I'm not any happier. So he sells his house, he sells his plane, he sells all of his stuff. He gets a mobile home. It's in Malibu, don't feel too sorry for him, it's in the ocean. And he gets his mobile home, and he starts riding his bike to work every day, and then he gets hit by a car.
Yeah.
Nice. It's like, I'm doing everything right, he's in the hospital, he's trying to recover, he's in excruciating pain. And so he's like, I give up. God, I'm done, I'm out of here. I don't really care if I live or die. At this point, it was totally surrender. Uncle, total uncle. Well, he heard, go out and make different movies and ask 2 questions. What's wrong with the world and what can we do to fix it? Use your gift for good. So he did. He started going out and doing these interviews and asking different gurus and artists and all that stuff. And so he did all of this. And so what happened for him was he found out that there's a lot of good things happening in the world. A lot of things are going right. A lot of people are doing good things. And he was very inspired by that. And so he went to the Institute for Noetic Sciences out in the San Francisco area, right? And do you guys know the yogurt scene? Anybody know this? There's a blob of yogurt in front of him, and the scientists were like, we're going to show an experiment how there's energy in everything, okay? Whether it has a heart that's breathing or it's just a blob of yogurt, everything is energy. There's just different shapes and different forms, but that's quantum physics. So here we go. They put sensors on the yogurt, and the scientists said, we want to show how your energy can be absorbed by something else. So here he is in front of the yogurt, and they say to him, think of something that really stresses you out. So he was going through a divorce at the time, so he thinks about his divorce. He thinks about his divorce attorney. And the sensors go on the yogurt.